yang terjadi hari ini
kemarin. Hello, Mr. Chen and Miss Monarita.
Hi.
Yeah, we have some issues for the internet in here. Please stay, but I will log out from the Zoom and will join again soon. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It means like we stay first, right? Later you
Yeah. You
when
can
I can
stay.
start, you just
Yeah.
let me know. Huh?
Yes. Correct. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, Mr. Chen.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I just start with the talk. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mr. Chen. Actually, I come from American Air Filter, which is a filter company. Good evening to everyone joining this talk. I'm actually working at more than 10 years in the company. Today, just would like to share some laboratory safety guidance to all of you. Safety is very important to us, but we tend to forget. And actually, we did not pay attention on this safety guidance. And actually, most companies more pay attention on the cost before safety. So let me today just brief you about the laboratory safety guidance to alert you all on the safety again. This is the safety guidance by the OSHA. I think you all know, just basic, but today just would like to give awareness to all of you. Okay, why I say that mean the safety is very important. I think everyone is know. This is because lab safety, if you not don't have a safety in the lab, right, you will endanger yourself and others. Not only that, human life is always the very important, and also the healthy is very important. If you don't have any safety in the lab, so you may endanger yourself and others in the lab. This is the first priority we need to emphasize during the work or during any experiment in the lab. Second, if you not follow the safety rules, you may ruin your experiment and the analysis result because you are doing something that is make someone in the danger condition. You may spoil the experiment result. Second, if without the safety, accident may happen, and it could damage the equipment and cause some budget cost to the company, and also will harmful to the people as well. Of course, lab safety is always a legal requirement. We need to meet the safety requirement so that we can do not have any penalty from the government or from any authority party. This is just a simple 10 important lab safety rule I want to show you. I think everyone is knowing this cannot be done, or which one can be done in the lab and which one cannot be done in the lab. The basic is need to dress properly. I do not want to explain one by one because this is just a 10 important physical rules that you may know. And those that I want to highlight today is those that is not under physical. And maybe you not realize in the lab there is some hidden safety, dangerous item that you're not aware. First is the particle, because inside the air is full of particle, and the particle maybe will, you not filter the particle and you work inside the lab, you may get, the respiratory system will be affected. The most dangerous is come with the molecular gases. Not only the particle, inside the environment, we have the gases, contaminant. And you all know in the lab, right, there is a lot of chemical using. So the molecular gases with flowing in the air. So this is very dangerous to the human working in the laboratory, because sometimes you just getting some smell. Even some gases is without the smell, but someone also working in the environment already immune to the smell, and they continue to work in this environment, we have a long-term effect either to their healthy, to their lung, or they cause some cancer to you, which is not so good. Let's come back to the OSHA, the safety statement. Inside OSHA, this is early in the 1970 already have this OSHA already formed, and actually the statement is stated that need to ensure the safe and healthful working condition for working men and women by authorizing the enforcement of the standard developed under the Act by assisting and encouraging the state in their effort to assure safe and healthful working condition by providing for research, information, education, and training in the field of occupational safety and health. I think this is a long-term, a very long statement, but what is inside to emphasize is always the safety to the human. Of course, inside OSHA, right, there is a lot of principle standard that emphasize those safety. But today, the one that I want to focus is the occupational exposure to hazardous chemical, more on the chemical hazardous in the laboratory standards. This one you can find, I mean, based on the 29 CFR 19101450 inside OSHA. So others is just a reference. Those others, I mean, the principle OSHA standard inside OSHA. But the first one is the one that I want to emphasize today. Before we start, I think you are knowing a lot of types of the laboratory. Just let us like go through, I mean, very quickly, what type laboratory we have. I mean, first one is the production lab. Those like the lab that producing the goods. Second one is the biosafety lab. Those study like the virus, like currently the COVID-19, they are studying the, I mean, the vaccine. It will be, I mean, carry on in the biosafety lab. Other than that, like clean rooms, they have their own lab for their own study, clinical and medical lab, incubator lab, such as the IVF lab, analytical and quality lab, and research development lab. Those that doing some study on their product or on some chemical. Today, those that we cover, right, is mostly the last 5 types, most talking on the chemical side. Those that involve the chemical hazardous. Okay, come back to the, I mean, the standard that I want to focus today, occupational exposure to hazardous chemical in laboratory standard. I mean, from this standard, they want to ensure the worker, they are informed about the hazard of the chemical in their working place and make sure they are being protected from this hazardous, but by not exceeding the allowable level. I mean, for this standard insight, there is 2 things important we need to do. How we going to follow this standard? There are 2 important steps we want to carry on to follow this standard. First one, we need to appoint a chemical hygiene officer. Second is to develop a chemical hygiene plan. In the next few slides, I will, I mean, describe the detail of the duty of the chemical hygiene officer and what should be included in the chemical hygiene plan. These are 2 important steps we need to start on to based on, I mean, to follow this standard. Okay, come back to the duty of chemical hygiene officer. Basically, let's say in the lab or inside a company, who will be a chemical hygiene officer? This depends. I mean, depends on the how your company condition. But basically, will be sometimes, I mean, most of us will be like quality control department, or even though it's some lab assistant, or sometimes will be a HR. It depends. Depends on which company, I mean, the company policy and also like the organization of the company. I mean, what should this chemical hygiene officer doing? I mean, he or she need to develop and implement a chemical hygiene plan, such as need to include those monitoring process, how the chemical being procured, and helping the boss or the director upgrade the facility, and advising the administrator on improved chemical hygiene policy and practice. After implement, right, they will need to do the formal inspection. I mean, because after implement, they need to do some formal inspection to check whether it's being implemented, everyone follow the regulation, or sometimes, I mean, mostly, I mean, this is the 4 places that we need to carry on the formal inspection, such as the laboratory, those are chemical storage room, the ventilation system, and also the safety and emergency equipment. Okay, just like I'm saying, I mean, chemical hygiene officer need to develop the chemical hygiene plan. What should this plan include? Because this plan actually, chemical hygiene plan is very wide. It should cover a lot of the contents. I mean, this is some of the example and the important example you need to include in this chemical hygiene plan. First of all, of course, it's the SOP. I mean, in the company or in the lab, how we need to buying a chemical or some toxic chemical, we need to have create some SOP to follow. How many, I mean, the amount, the volume that we able to buy, or some regulation from government we need to follow, some form we need to fill out, something like this. So the SOP need to be created. Second is the criteria on the specific control. Of course, we need to have some engineering control, the step stated inside the chemical hygiene plan, and those the suitable PPE need to be wear during carry on some experiment and so on. Also, we need to have some program to ensure the safety and emergency equipment are working properly, because like just a basic thing like a water pipe inside the lab, I mean, we make sure there is a water supply. If any accident happen, right, sometimes most of them, right, they will need to use the water to rain through the eye, something, or the hand, or this being I mean, overdosed by the chemical. They need to have, I mean, if the water supply is no water supply, then it'll be a big issue for the worker that having the problem. Second, of course, we need to emphasize the training requirement. The training requirement, I mean, training is very important. We need to specify the training before someone enter the lab, or before someone work in the lab, or before the worker they carry on the work in the lab. Of course, I mean, just now I talk about the SOP, but sometimes the SOP does not cover the specific, I mean, the special condition. So when there is something happen or something that is not included in the SOP, always we need to get some approval, the authority from maybe the management or from the chemical hygiene officer. Of course, I mean, we need to have, this plan also need to cover some provision for the medical consultation and medical exam that we provided to the worker that exposed long-term to the, I mean, the chemical hazard. Also, in this plan, we need to clearly state who is the chemical hygiene officer and what is his or her, I mean, the responsibility in the plan, and what is his or her position in the company. Other than that, like those precaution steps to select those toxic chemical and also the carcinogen chemical, we need to be stated all these precaution steps inside the chemical hygiene plan also. Next thing, inside the chemical hygiene plan, just now I give you, I mean, the basic, I mean, the content of the chemical hygiene plan. Now I will come in more detail, like those, the more specific and the very important detail that we need to have. Let's say just now I talk about the chemical, because in the chemical that we use, right, sometimes in the lab, we use a lot of chemical. So every chemical will have their own properties, and we need to have, the important document we need to have is the MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet. We need to keep this inside the plan. Always people can access to this plan and find out the MSDS of the chemical using. So the chemical also need to have a labeling, the proper labeling, so people do not, I mean, misuse the chemical, because a lot of chemical do not smell, do not color. We cannot differentiate just by the bottle or just by memory. We need to have a proper labeling. Of course, I mean, the storage also is very important. We cannot simply store the chemical here and there when it causes some dangerous to others. We need to keep it in the proper place. And also the disposal. Some chemical, actually, mostly all the chemical, I can say, is under some schedule waste. We need to call some assigned schedule waste company to throw it. So the disposal method need to be correct. Just now I talked about the training need to be given to the worker or to those working in the lab. So what should be given based on the training? Basically, normally will be before the duty. We need to let them know the SOP. I mean, the chemical lab safety procedure, the hazardous waste inside the lab, and the spill and accident response. What should they do after the accident happened? Other than that, right, is those the record keeping is very important. When sometimes some accident happen, we need to check back the record or something. We need to check. The record is very important to us. First is the medical consultation. Because sometimes we do not know the worker, maybe they have some history on some sickness. So if you have this, right, maybe easier. Second, also we need to keep the inspection record. Like I say, the chemical hygiene officer need to perform the inspection, I mean, regularly. So the record need to be keeping. So anything happen, we can trace back. And the record of the training for those person, they need to sign the attendance and we keep it for some future reference. And also, of course, the MSDS of every chemical, we need to keep it. Okay, just now talk about the material safety data sheet. I mean, inside, why I say the MSDS is very important, because it consists of a lot of info that you can find. This is a standard international 16 info will be inside the MSDS. So I'm not going through the detail of the every information. Just want to show you the MSDS is very important. Just talk about the labeling. I roughly will go through the labeling, because labeling also we cannot like just using a pen to write the label or to draw a picture by yourself or draw something that only you understand but other people do not understand. Actually, the labeling there is follow the global standard. We call GHS labeling, globally harmonized system of classification. This is an international standard. Inside this label, you will have those like the signal word, let's say the danger to other people, and the GHS symbol. From this symbol, you very easy you can classify how dangerous of this chemical and what is the hazard happen if this chemical. Also, the manufacturing information, precautionary statement, hazard statement, and also the product name. So this is one of the example how the labeling look like. Every chemical should have this type of labeling. Just I'll talk about the chemical storage, because this is just an example. Because like those flammable, we cannot keep flammable. I mean we need to keep flammable liquid far away from the fire source, something like this. But sometimes the label is still not enough. Sometimes we need to refer back to the MSDS for the more proper chemical storage. Inside the MSDS, it will state it more clearly on the requirement. This is also the example on the chemical disposal. I think some of us you have seen before how we dispose. Normally, the schedule waste company will give you some container to keep the schedule waste, and they will come to take it regularly. But the important also I want to remind everyone is about the labeling. You even have the container, you need to do a proper labeling. You cannot like just putting this chemical inside the container without a labeling, because not everyone will know you keep this chemical inside this labeling. No one maybe will understand why is this inside the chemical. Okay, just now we talk about the two important steps, chemical hygiene officer and chemical hygiene plan. But inside the standard, actually not only that, there are also other major elements. First is the hazard identification, then come to the chemical hygiene plan, then also the information and training, exposure monitoring, and medical consultation and examination. Actually, most of it I already cover. Actually you can put it down inside the chemical hygiene plan. There is no issue. This is just like let you know more detail. Now I want to come to talk about the hierarchy of control, because to avoid the accident happen, to make sure the lab is safe to work, some control, specific control step we need to take care. This is prioritized from the most effective to the least effective. The first one is engineering control, because by making changes to the work environment. Let's say we in the lab, we buy a film hood. This is considered engineering control that will eliminate those like chemical hazardous. Second one is the administrative control. This is to modify the work schedule. Let's say we keep it in the shift, because we knowing like exposure to this chemical or to this environment more than 8 hours is not good to healthy. So we will, in the company, we will try to minimize. We will work in the shift so that minimize the exposure. Second is also the good work practice control. We need to always have a good work practice control to minimize, to control, to maintain us in a safety environment. Because like this chemical, always we follow that, to use a correct amount of the chemical, but not overdose. The last one, I think those you already know, is the PPE, because I think most of you thinking PPE is the most important, but actually PPE is the least important, because this one we already exposed to the environment, the hazardous environment. We just wearing something to protect, but if can, we try to avoid that. Okay, just now is the introduction, but now I want to talk about like how, my company like AAF help to mitigate the chemical hazard. Actually, we are suggested 3 ways. The first one is a source control. This, let's say, we knowing this chemical is having the hazardous. We do not want to use this chemical in the lab, but sometimes it's not work because this chemical must be used because they need to use this chemical to get some result. They cannot avoid, they not able to avoid to use this chemical. So of course, the source control is the most effective. And second one, people will think on the ventilation. They are putting some exhaust fan so that, to make the air change per hour better. So to make the flow, make it, the air change faster so that to eliminate those harmful gases in the lab. The last one is the gas phase filtration. We need to use some chemical media to absorb or react with the harmful gases so that it provide, the harmful gases being eliminated. Later we'll talk about how this gas phase filtration is work. Actually in this world, there is a lot of chemical media and a lot of gases in the world. But basically, we are talking about 3 main process is going the chemical media to control on the gases. First one is by absorption. The absorption, right, basically is talking about the VOC gases. When the gases come in contact with the media, it will be absorbed inside the media because the carbon media have a lot of pore structure. The gases will be trapped inside the media. But this is a reversible process. When someone bring this media, we heat it up, activate up, so the gases will come out. So basically the media after use, right, we cannot simply throw away. We need to go through some schedule ways. Second is absorption. This is mainly for those acidic gases and the base gases. We're using a media that have a neutralization process. We could think the media with some chemical, then go through a neutralization, we can neutralize the harmful gases, become a non-harmful gases. The last one is going the oxidation process. By this kind of media from our company, this will create, a process we call oxidation or reduction. We call actually is redox. By changing certain chemical ion number, we can convert the harmful chemical to non-harmful chemical. This is just now what I say. The first VOC, all this, right? The carbon structure have a lot of pores. So the pores can trap all the gases. So this is how the carbon media look like. Okay, just now I say the 3 process to remove the chemical, but all this media, right, is need to assisted by the van der Waals forces. So the chemical, let's say the acidic gases, the contaminant need to assisted by the van der Waals force to trap on the surface of the media. Then after that, only the neutralization, the physics absorption, and those oxidation happen. Okay, in AAF, right, actually we not only like provide this gas phase media only. Actually, we have like the whole series of the service together. We have the media, then we have our chemical filter. The filter, then we have our the housing and equipment. Besides that, also we have our lab analysis. Because like those media, we have our own lab, right, to analyze the media in our lab for the lifetime, for the capacity in our lab. Also, we can do some environmental analysis in the lab environment and so on. We can using some equipment to copper and silver. We can check what is the condition in the lab, and after use of our media, what is the condition in the lab. This is the media that in our company. This is like subcup MA, subcup MB, and suboxidant. Subcup is the one that using the physics option to absorb the VOC. Cup MA is target for the acidic gases. Cup MB target for ammonia gases. Cup M and Cup MB is using the neutralization concept, as I mentioned earlier. Suboxidant is using the redox process, the oxidation and also the reduction of the ion to remove the certain gases like formaldehyde, like those, I mean, the new office, new lab, they have a lot of formaldehyde and aldehyde. We can use oxidant to remove the smell. Okay, beside the chemical media, actually we have our treated filter, like those air filter also. You can see this, we have a very high range the product from like the 2-inch to 6-inch, 12-inch, and also come with a special casing we have to put in the chemical media, the raw media inside to target the gases. So actually in this industry, it's not just like a very simple, but actually we can be very complicated. We will propose a filter based on, I mean, the customer requirement, based on the customer construction, I mean, the housing construction, based on also the airflow, based on also certain, I mean, the gases concentration. We can analyze all these things. I mean, if you can provide the data to us, the requirement, we can propose the solution in the filter, I mean, suitable filter to you. I mean, of course, beside the filter, we can make some bigger unit, some standalone unit, like left-hand side, PRU is a standalone recirculation unit. You can put this in the room, in the lab, to make sure the lab is always being recirculated, to make sure they supply some clean air. Of course, also we have some side housing for the exhaust unit or for the fresh air unit. So like some lab, I mean, of course, there is like a regulation we need to follow. You cannot like just have a ventilation to throw the gases out from the lab. So sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, I mean, they will need some unit to filter the exhaust gas before it exhausts to the environment. So mostly we can propose a side housing to the lab, then go through our filter, then the gases will become non-harmful. After that, we also have some housing for the ducting, front access housing, same concept. We install the housing with the chemical media, chemical filter housing to remove the gases. Okay, talk about the lab analysis. This is very important because not a lot of companies can do this lab analysis. Mostly they are fighting the third party. Sometimes the cost is very expensive. But for us, AAF, right, we are doing this analysis for free if you purchase the media from us. The thing that we can do a lot like those media physical tests and media chemical tests. But those things I want to highlight is the chemical remaining life. When we sell the media, actually we do not want to do like one-time business. We are providing our after-sales service to customer. The customer after use for sometimes maybe 1 or 2 months, they can send back some sample of the raw chemical media to us. Then we can check the remaining life inside our lab. Because we have our own lab in Malaysia, the response is very fast, and actually is according to the ASTM standard. So it's very accurate, and also we challenge with the gases. So beside the lab, right, we also have some equipment for the environmental analysis. Those 3 main things we can analyze the environment, because sometimes customers do not know what gases contain in the air. So, and how is the condition in the lab? How is the corrosion level? How is the corrosivity? And what is the concentration? And is it dangerous or something like this? We can doing some site environmental analysis, or even some customer, they doubt about our filter, whether it's work or not work. So we also can use this to prove to them before and after what is the result. Yep. Actually, that's all from my presentation. Now maybe it's a Q&A section. I think just now I saw some question in the Q&A. From Danani, okay, can I get the presentation by send to my email? Okay, I think maybe you can give me your email, or later on I will show to you my email address and some contact. You may drop an email to me to inquiry on this presentation slide. Second question is from the Suhartoyo. For chemical storage, one requirement is temperature control. The other side, another requirement, good ventilation where exhaust fan needed to send toxic gas away. How to fulfill both requirements that contract additive to each other. I mean, of course, chemical storage, first thing, we need to know that what type of chemical you want to store inside the room or something. Do you store it in the control room, or I mean the room? We want to know. I mean, the good ventilation, as I know, right? The room that keep the toxic gases, I mean the toxic chemical inside the room, they need to have we need to have certain air change per hour, depend on the type of the chemical, and also the exhaust. When you exhaust out, right, we need to go through some system to filter the harmful gases before you can exhaust to the environment. So if you have some inquiry, maybe you can drop it to me later. I'll show you the email, then we can talk in detail. Okay, from Dana, the other question is there any standard ventilation for laboratory? Actually, the standard ventilation, there is no. Some people is just install an exhaust fan. Actually, it depends what kind of chemical you are dealing in the lab. Some people, they not use, because some lab, they are not using chemical like those biosafety. They are using different equipment also. So we need to know what kind of lab. And I mean, the standard ventilation, of course, is just by some exhaust fan. There are some people doing that, just exhaust out without any, I mean, the chemical system, chemical filter media system. But this is not encouraged. If you are facing some heavy duty of the concentration of the contaminant, I mean, this is violent the regulation. I mean, the government maybe will give you a penalty. So we need to know what kind of the chemical you are using in the lab first. Okay, I think that Rusty sent me the email address. So I think later I will need to change maybe to share you the slide. Okay, do you have any other question? I think I just answer all the question. I show you maybe I think someone you do not think about the question yet. This is my name card. Maybe you can take a picture. I mean, you can record down my email address and even though my phone number. Anything you can send me the email and we can discuss further. Yeah, I think someone also asking about the presentation slide. I will take note on the email address. Later on, I will discuss with my team, then I will see how to share it to you. So I think, this is my contact number, my contact email address. So if there's nothing, I think I will end the section by today. Thank you very much for joining.